Hello, Lee. Good night.
Hi, hello. This is the latest performance I've done, but actually I think this is definitely, for me, the best time to do it because it's really dark now. It's dark outside, so I don't have to worry about the lighting effect, and the lighting is incredible. It's so much better than when you saw it in the daytime. So I'm pleased that we stuck with this time. So it's good.
Hello, Anna.
Hi.
Look at her.
You're the same time as me, 10 o'clock. It's quite late, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Don't worry, I've had plenty of coffee. I did a rehearsal this morning and it went well, and then I had to do some teaching.
We have some people here. Hello, everybody. And so, for not to be more late to you, I will leave the word with Lee. If anyone have any doubts with Zoom, the platform, let us know in the chat. I will indicate to put Lee on pin or list in the speaker view full screen version, anything that you want. And see you guys later. Lee, please, you have the word. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to this event. Yeah, well, what can I say? I hope you enjoy it, and there will be some time for questions afterwards if I don't feel too tired. First of all, I want to say thank you to Daniel and to Anna for inviting me to do this as part of the festival. Fantastic opportunity, thank you so much, and it's been really wonderful getting to know both of you two, and I hope our friendship, our collaboration continues. So tonight I'm going to perform a poem via Zoom, and it's called Clever at Seeing Without Being Seen. It mixes spoken word, poetry, and also visuals and imagery. And the images that you will see, they are from my archive of artwork. So I'm an artist and I make a lot of performances, but my background is in painting and photography. And the images that you see are from my personal archive of 25 years. And I've reused these images, these paintings, these drawings, and these films that I've made as part of this performance. So it's a real, yeah, it's revisiting my history, basically. So I hope you enjoy it, and I look forward to your comments and questions after. And the performance is about 20-25 minutes. Okay, thank you. I, 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 discover the same other, whilst under the cover, creeping, seeping, peeping, covert operations, my teenage fascinations, awkward altercations with non-queer populations, sensations that taught me, if ever they caught me, side cautiously deliberately blur, words that infer, derogatory slur. I got very clever at seeing without being seen. I discover the same other whilst under the cover. Discover the same other whilst under the cover. Discover the same other whilst under the cover. I discover whilst under the cover. Same other under the cover.
Discover the same creative was under the cover. Discover the same other was under the cover. I.
Chelsea, 1996. Listening and watching the football with my dad. Dad watched the match. I watched the players. Dad remembers the midfielder's tackle. I remember the midfielder's tackle. Dad remembers the midfielder being shown the red card. I remember the midfielder's red underwear showing. Dad remembers listening to hear who will next play against Chelsea. I remember listening to imagine the midfielder. Dad remembers telling me that as I liked football, I might like rugby. I remember agreeing. Creeping, seeping, peeping. I spy, guy. I spy, guy. Creeping, seeping, peeping. Covert operations, my teenage fascinations, awkward altercations with non-queer populations. Cruising you, will you cruise me back? Cruising you, will you cruise me back?
Say hello. You're matched. 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 You're matched. Say hello. Say hello. You're matched. 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 Say hello. You're matched.
Creeping, seeping, peeping.
Say hello. You're matched. You're matched.
sensations that taught me, if ever they caught me. Every cut, every rip in my scrapbook. As a teenager, I kept a very large scrapbook, images catching my attention. What happens now if I go back, take a look, when me being me, I dare not mention? Every tear, every tear in my scrapbook, each image with its own special meaning. Images of men for girls everywhere to look, being gay in a straight world dreaming. Cutting out bits from that week's smash hits for my scrapbook, my bedroom wall, my private public space. Then from the wall into my scrapbook, hundreds of images and lyrics, but all I wanted to look at was his face. But the handsome man's face was carefully placed in between images from National Geographic magazine. I became a master of collage, those I desired, in amongst images of others and places I had been, always liminal, clever at seeing without being seen. I always remember my art teacher, Miss Cavalier. The artists she taught me all turned out to be queer. Did she know something I didn't, my teacher, Miss Cavalier, now so obviously glaring, my love of Keith Haring and Rob Mapplethorpe's men, erotic and daring. Yet, this was the time in the 90s, gay men were perceived. We all have AIDS, many straight folks believed. Maybe that's why I didn't fully inquire in the artists my teacher taught me for fear of the fire. That time in the 90s when the only way I could see men in their underwear was in vintage fashion magazines from the 1970s. My sexy Italian geography teacher, my imagination in your class took me everywhere. Normally I hated orange, but those baggy 90s orange coloured trousers accentuated the shape of his backside. Seeing Andrew in the changing room, what a sight for sore eyes, creeping downstairs whilst parents asleep to watch bad straight porn, smuggling copies of Gay Times magazine into my room just to see guys like me, gay kissing scenes on TV, Dad trying to hide his discomfort and sometimes not. With his intellect and eyes deep blue, my student crush was Mr. Taylor, another George too. In Paris, my heart broke. It wasn't me George was kissing. I remember dancing alone to everything but the girls hit missing. A source of frustration was school sex education. My elderly teacher, although terribly kind, was not well prepared for a teenager's mind. Andrew, she said, this condom, roll it down a banana. I can hear giggles from someone. Is that you, Pollyanna? Andrew struggled at first to get the sheath on. Miss, Jason shouted, Robert's banana is 2 inches long. Well, it's the angle of the dangle, Miss quickly replied, pointing to an OHP of where to stick it inside. The default is hetero, but what about gay? I had a burning question for Miss, but never dare say. It was quite unexpected, but for me, not so weird, when my teacher in her 60s said she likes men with a beard. Wish I could go back now and tell her, well, so do I. Nothing quite as sexy as a beard on a guy. Look in my scrapbook, I remember his songs, but my eyes were on his chest and what's under those thongs. Jesus to a child, such a sad song that he sung, but I'll never forget George Michael wet in the video for Fast Love, All My Christmases Come. His album Older helped me through tough times, me finding comfort in the beauty of what he wrote in its lines. Whilst I love George and his chest back in late 87, this album taught me gays don't just live and die heaven. We are often perceived as fake, camp, G-A-Y, yet Older, the album was heartfelt and brought tears to my eye. There came a day when I had to throw away my too heavy to manage, too bulky to carry scrapbook. If I could go back now, back to my teenage 13-year-old self, what would I say? Actually, Lee, in time, you will be fine. You will be okay. My surprise was my scrapbook. I kept scrapping for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Homophobic eyes fueling my shame. Normative culture provoking my fears. Brighton, 2001, my first gay pub, Queen's Arms, George Street, heart aflutter, legs like mush, the street was George, the name of my teenage crush. Here is where I learnt, bigger the fish, bigger the tackle, bigger the fish, bigger the tackle. Theologist Irving Goffman says our lives are performances for others. On George Street, I wasn't acting with my fellow gay brothers. Before coming out, the world saw a version of me. From backstage to now on stage, I finally felt free. Nervous yet emancipated, a space so animated. I felt at home in a place with men like me everywhere. How excited I was when a guy gave me a stare. The kind us gays know means I fancy you, bear.
You're up yet another notch on Kiss, the sound of young London. Tomorrow night, Saturday, you can catch me, Judge Jules, alongside Jeremy.
Discover the same other whilst under the cover. 1994, me a boy no more. I needed to see men like me. I shaved my hair to fit in where disco beats fill London streets. Mixtape boys, so much joy amongst gays like me who gaze and see. See me, see Lee.
How can I love you more? A new entry at #1 on the dance album chart this week.
Aye, 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 aye,
Cruising you, will you cruise me back? Men bruising me like I'm the wrong kind of fat. Early noughties in my early 20s, the King's Arms pub, Soho. I discovered bears and cubs don't just live in the forest. Cruising for a bruising, bruising whilst cruising, include, exclude. All welcome here to this members club.
cruising you, will you cruise me back? Men bruising me like I'm the wrong kind of fat.
Always 2 steps forward, always 2 steps back. Bullied at school for being gay, now bullied by gays for being wrong fat. The queer community is a community that preaches be yourself, be you, but not you. How fucked up is that?
Cruising you, will you cruise me back? Men bruising me like I'm the wrong kind of fat.
I could feel the words in the stare of this most uptight bear. You could do with losing a few. Well, the only thing I'm losing is my mind. And just when I thought I finally had caught the eye of a rather nice guy, as I stood at the bar with my Stella Artois, he pushed me back into the heat and fire and flames of those playground games that names and shames those who do not aspire to be Mr. Muscular hyphen heteronormative. Thank you, Mr. How to Kill Desire.
Twink, otter, bear, cub, chub, cub, twink, otter, wolf. Which one am I?
Too fat to be a cub. No, body shame. Too fat to be a cub. Not fat enough to be a bear. Too fat to be a cub. No wrong kind of fat. Bear, twink, cub, chubber, chubby chaser. Me, over the painbow. You're fit, you're fat, you're fit, you're fat, you're fit, you're fat, you're fit, you're fat, you're fit, you're fat. Fit, fat, fit, fat, fit, fat, fit, fat. Queer is a disruption. We are the disruptors, young queer people. We're space architects, imagineers, creating spaces that destroy our fears. We survive in spaces where we thrive and our beauty comes alive. Yet, these spaces we create, we animate by constant self-policing. Say the right thing, body image. We're feeling quite oppressed ourselves. Back in the pub, through his Bacardi and Coke and cigarette smoke, this excuse for a bloke cracks joke after joke. Blue-eyed boy Lee, I love your dark, hairy legs. Shame the rest of your frame is like pie from that baker's Greggs. Be more like me on spinach and eggs. You can't be a cub, you're far too old. Put those legs out on show if you want to get sold. I'm getting quite tricked on these bodies all ripped. Imagine mine stripped and everything flipped. Spinach and eggs, your walls and regs in the hole at the back of the top of my leg. No body shame, no wrong kind of fat. Smash the fads, rip the mags. Smash the fads, rip the mags. We are a community anti-being controlled, yet there are those who are persistently told, you are too slim to be fat, too thin to be that. When will we get over the labels and stereotypes and just be? All you body gamers, shamers and namers, stick your walls and regs in the holes at the back of the top of our legs. Invisible queer, seeing and looking, imagining here, teenage magazine. Look beyond fear, see and be seen. Aye, 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 aye. And that's the end of the performance. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I have only to thank you, Lee, for this literally experience and that you exposed too much of your own experience. I'm just gonna do this little interlude.
I find I've got so much energy after doing that. I could probably talk for another 3 hours.
Okay, no problem.
I need something tonight, but I'm really happy to talk about it, and Actually, that was the longest performance that I've done of that work, because normally when I perform it, it's normally about 5 or 10 minutes. So tonight was quite a challenge. I mean, it's nearly 25 minutes, and yeah, you're right. It used a lot of different sections, and I could put them together, and I'm quite pleased that I did, because I think it presents something which is, yeah, it's basically my personal history. And I guess with me, I've never really addressed issues of identity or sexuality in my work until last year. And I never wrote poetry before until last year, until the lockdown, until COVID happened. And when I started to, I found it really cathartic. And the way that I got into doing this using Zoom was doing open mics, poetry open mics on Zoom. And I found it very, very liberating. But I wasn't using the visuals. And when I started to use the visuals, I think it added a completely different dimension. And I discovered the visuals by accident. So in 2020, so just before lockdown and COVID, I was making a lot of short films. So the images that you see, a lot of the images, like the ones at the start with me pulling the paper, and you know, the images of the bodies and the body magazines and all the stuff at the end, they were actually short films that I had made, and they were beginning to get really successful in international film festivals. But I'm a performer, and I loved making short films, but I really missed live performance and doing this. And yeah, the films, the imagery that you saw tonight in the films, they were doing really successfully in film festivals all over the world. But like I say, I missed performance. So somebody said to me, why don't you try writing some poetry? And I thought, oh, I can't do poetry. I'm an artist, I'm not a poet. So anyway, last November, somebody said, come to this poetry open mic on Zoom, you know, just try something, experiment. And I remember doing it. And I was so nervous, because what I like what I said tonight in the performance, it's very, very personal. And I think, I hope everybody, thank you, there's quite a lot of people now, a nice audience. Even though it's incredibly painful, some of the things that I'm talking about, I think the humour and the comedy of some of the things that I'm saying, like with the football and the tackle and the stuff around bodies, there's a lot of humour in it, there's a lot of comedy. And that's the way that I like to make work, which is very, very personal and very private, but to make it very accessible to other people by using humour. So anyway, I did this poetry in November, and I was so nervous, but the response was absolutely amazing. And so for the last 9 months, I've been doing these Zoom open mics, these Zoom poetry nights. And just by accident, I found the video green screen effect on Zoom. And, you know, I'll do it now so you can so you can see. Yeah, I mean, most people, you know, they might have an image of, I don't know, Tower of London or Statue of Liberty in the background. And I saw the add video option. So I thought, what would happen if I put one of my films as the background? And when I did, that's when, I mean, it's purely a happy accident. It happened so quickly. And when that happened, it was like, wow, this is amazing. So yeah, this is what I've been doing for the last 9 months. And most of these performances have been quite short. They've been about 5 or 10 minutes, but tonight was much longer. And I thought I was going to be really tired after it, but I actually, as I was performing, I was really, really enjoying it. And you probably noticed that I was getting quite angry and quite frustrated at times, because I think even though the work is very personal, there's a lot of anger in the work, and not in a kind of, I'm not trying to make people feel deliberately uncomfortable with the work, but I'm trying to provoke, because I think good art, good cinema, good anything really should make people feel something. They should make people not just feel, but to think something. But what's really interesting now is hello. So you just don't just see my eyes. What's happened now is I've started to perform the poetry, but not using Zoom. So the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've been going to theatres and to performance spaces and reading the poetry, but obviously with none of the visuals. I take my tape recorder and I have that part, but there's none of the Zoom visuals. So I would really miss that. So I'm really enjoying being in physical space and hearing and seeing people's reaction, because when you're on Zoom, I mean, yes, people have written, thank you for your lovely comments. You know, they might say this, you know, they've really enjoyed it. They might, you know, laugh like a laughter emoji, but to actually be in the physical space and hear that laughter, that was not something I was expecting. So that's been a really exciting part for me, going into the physical space. But people, whenever they say to me about my work now, they're like, wow, Lee is the king of Zoom video, because nobody is using it in the way that you do. And I think the whole world now, I mean, March 2020, and I don't know about everybody here, but I certainly did not know what Zoom was. I had used Skype before, maybe in meetings, and I found it a bit awkward. I'm a teacher, I lecture in art at a university in London. We sometimes use Skype, but with the pandemic, I mean, when everything went onto Zoom, I think the world is probably a bit bored of Zoom now, to be honest. But actually, I think there's something really creative that can also happen out of restriction. And with the restriction that I've got with Zoom, I actually find it really liberating, and really, it's actually completely reinvented my practice. So anyway, I don't think I can speak anymore. I know that maybe some of the language that I was using, it's quite colloquial. There's quite a lot of British slang language that maybe an international audience might not get, but I didn't change the performance just because you might not understand the slang. I think that's important. And I think if you don't always understand the cultural references, I think certainly with the imagery, people can, people get lots of different levels from it. I don't think the last time that I showed this work to Daniel and Anna, I didn't have the middle section with the scrapbook and all of those images. And that was an actual physical scrapbook that I kept for about 10 years when I was a teenager. And I made a film where I had it. The scrapbook does not exist anymore. It's just digital images. So I then made a film using those images, and I'm sure there's many of those images that you would recognize regardless of where you live in the world. So anyway, there's that's me. That's my artist statement for this evening.
Lovely. Yeah. Well, first of all, I guess I would like to ask everyone else if anyone would like to pose a question before I pose my questions, and then. Yeah, well, first of all, I guess I would like to ask everyone else if anyone would like to pose a question before I pose my questions, and then we can
Actually, I'd like to congratulate him. I really enjoyed the work, how much I like collage.
Yeah,
and it's all about it. So I really loved it. And the text and all your body movements, and I really enjoyed it a lot. For real, it really got inside me. Congratulations again. Thank you very much.
Malude,
really. I got goosebumps. It was incredible.
Oh, wow. Well, the first time I did this performance, most of the performance was with my back to the audience, but there was, when we did a rehearsal with Anna, there was problems with sound and people couldn't hear me. So tonight, when I performed it, I wanted to make sure that there was parts where my back was turned, when I'm facing the audience, I'm moving about, and so there's all this dislocation that's happening all the time. And yeah, I feel pretty exhausted.
Yeah,
it's like a workout. That's like I've just been in the gym. I've just been in the gym for 2 hours.
Yes. Congratulations again. Thank you.
Thank you
for the experience. It was an experience.
Can I say something too?
Sure, thanks.
Well, first of all, thanks a lot, Lee, and congratulations for your awesome work. I really loved it. And I guess I wasn't, I knew it was some Zoom chroma key stuff, but I couldn't imagine the levels of how further you could go with that. And I really enjoyed it. And I was wondering, you were saying a lot about this necessity of changing towards an online space for performing, and that is in some ways a restriction. In other ways, it has potential, like you said. And I was wondering, while you were talking, I don't know, my mind went some crazy places, because here in Brazil, being able to actually perform safely on a physical environment is still really distant. But I was thinking, and I don't know, it could be a good idea to think about ways of when everybody's already tired of Zoom, and when we can all go to real places. You could, I don't know, I was wondering, there could be possibilities for you to keep using that interface, I don't know, with people using their phones live when you are there, I don't know, but it could be something awesome, right, to merge both online and physical presences. I don't know, but because the thing I want to say is that although Zoom was kind of a backup plan for you when pandemic happened, you really talked about some limitations of the physical space, because there aren't the visuals and the chroma key effect. But
yeah,
what if those could be mixed? I don't know, just an idea on the table. But really, I really like the work. Congratulations.
Yeah. No, I'm really pleased that you said that, because when I first, I guess because after 6 or 7 months of people seeing me do this, I was starting to get concerned that people were getting too comfortable with the visuals and not really listening to what I was saying. So when I started to perform in the physical space, without all the visuals, I was really, really happy when I heard people laughing and reacting to what I was saying, because I was getting a bit worried that the visual was going to be like a gimmick, like a bit of a, like a, I don't know, just a bit of a gimmick. And actually, I'm so happy that people really like what I'm saying, the actual content of the words. But I'm now in this space where I don't want to, although it was fantastic in the physical space, I remember, I think I was saying to Anna and Daniel that I did the second performance, which was only five weeks ago. It was in this very, very small theatre, no social distancing. There was about 60 people. It was very, very hot. Everyone was smoking. Well, actually they weren't, but it was very, very hot. And there was, I didn't care. I didn't care. Just for this one moment, I didn't care. And it felt really electric. But even though it was a fantastic experience, I still thought, I don't have to choose, oh, right, that's it. It's either Zoom or physical. What about if somehow these two can come together? So I was then thinking about, in the physical space, maybe doing projection and having projections on my back and, like literally projecting the images. And I thought, no, there's something about this Zoom, and there's something about people being in physical spaces, because I actually love the fact that we are a connected audience, but we're disparate at the same time. So I'm I'm really interested in exploring those possibilities. Yeah, it's so funny because I think there was something that the festival you published on one of your, you wrote this about these kinds of performances, and I absolutely loved it. Artifices like Zoom and Teams, once used for the furtherance of neoliberal productivity slavery, have become spaces of creative potency in the hand of our artists. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I love the fact that I'm taking something which is so corporate and so deadening, and trying to create this kind of embodied, visceral, bodily experience. And so when Malude, when you said I've had this experience and you were saying you're immersed, that for me felt wonderful, because if you can feel immersed on Zoom, then yeah. But God, the possibilities are endless.
That was great. Thank you so much, Lee, for that. And yeah, actually, this excerpt that you were quoting, it's for my curatorial concept for.
Oh, it's brilliant. I absolutely loved it, and I thought when I read that, I thought, wow, yeah, that's you've absolutely there's an English idiom, you've hit the nail on the head. I thought, wow, I could not put that better myself, because it's exactly how I conceptualize work. And actually, before doing Zoom, I used to make work using PowerPoint and really corporate technology, because I really love actually some of the not just corporate, but like a lot of the imagery, a lot of the moving imagery, like the eyes and the glasses moving up and down, and the guy on the train, and a lot of that is just shot with my mobile phone, because I don't come from a filmmaker's background, and so I like to use really basic, really simple technology, but really push it to its absolute limit. So like I'm doing with Zoom, and I still don't feel I've reached Zoom's fullest potential yet. Who knows where this will go.
Yeah, exactly. That's very interesting. And I think it kind of, well, both what you just said and what Rodrigo brought up just now, I think it kind of it establishes a sort of dialogue with what I wanted to ask you, which is about where is this, like, what can we do in terms of digital space and queer spaces? Because I was reminded, because I was reading this essay by Madison Moore, and they suggest, because of course with the pandemic a lot of venues are closing, and of course a lot of queer spaces are closing, things now are starting to slowly go back to somewhat of a normal, like, well, of course there's no such thing anymore, there's no going back, it's only different platforms and different ways of being together. But I was wondering, how do you see the virtual platform as a potential queer space, not exactly like an opportunity, but a space, like a different way of being together as a community? Because I was really touched. I suppose that's my favorite bit of the whole performance, when you go into like the actual spaces and you talk about being in Brighton, for example, and being inside those spaces and experiencing queerness as a community, and like all these challenges and the perks and the cons and the pressures and the body policing and all of that. And yeah, and I was wondering, how do you think that the virtual environment changes those places for the better or for the worse?
So when I first started doing these sort of Zoom poetry nights, it was really fascinating how a lot of people that were attending them felt that online they could have a certain sense of anonymity. That the virtual space was opening up a way of them being with other queer people that they did not feel comfortable within a physical space. But also the fact is that, you know, where I live in London, you know, most metropolitan cities have some form of queer community, physical spaces that you can go to. And so it's absolutely fascinating to actually have people where, you know, they don't have these queer physical spaces. But one of the issues that I found when actually one of the sections of the performance tonight where I'm walking in London and you can hear the tape player, that was me walking around a part of Soho which is known for its queer community or its gay community, and I felt such melancholy that I could not go at that time, July last year, that I could not go into those pubs. I could not have a drink. I could not socialise. I could not see friends. I don't particularly want to. I have no need to, but I didn't have the option to because they were all closed. And then I thought, well, hang on a minute. What has now happened? It's gone online, and yes, it's fantastic to be in those spaces, but there's these other kinds of communities which actually there's also some which are online, but there's also something very interesting, I think, which I guess particularly with the ideas that I talk about in this performance, which is around seeing and vision and looking and not looking, and the kind of difficult politics around visibility and queer visibility. Is there something about the queer community online that allows for that visibility to happen? Do we feel, I don't know, it's just there's something really like I'm looking at you, but I'm not looking at you at the same time. You're looking at me and we're having a connection, but it's a kind of uncanny connection. And I don't know whether there's something that's quite, that when we think about queer, because I say this in the performance, don't I? I talk about queer as a disruption, and to queer as a verb means to be an alternative. So is there something inherently queer about the virtual space that allows us to rethink or to maybe to re-examine some of these sort of ways in which we are together, that we are not just in a physical space being, but how we see and how we relate to each other. I can't answer the question. I think there's something really fascinating about how this online space can be, even though it's quite a strange, awkward space, particularly for communities or particularly for folk who do not feel they can occupy a physical space because of where they live or because of other pressures. The online space has absolutely acted as a form of emancipation, because they can be with others and creating these kind of social dynamics that could be otherwise not made possible to them. That's how I see it.
Thank you. And it is interesting that you say, oh, I don't know if I'm answering the question, because I think you absolutely are. Yeah, of course, all those things
I'm
don't
still
have...
trying to recover from that performance, to be honest, because what you're saying is so interesting and so relatable to what I'm talking about, and I whenever I'm having discussions with you know, at work with students and with other tutors, I'm really interested in the politics of seeing online and this kind of weird virtual space of vision. It's a weird space, and is there a relationship between that oddness of seeing in an online space, which has a kind of relationship with how queer people perform their visibility, how they are seen, how they are not seen, how it's a kind of I don't know, I don't want to say strange, but the word is uncanny. Is it an uncanny kind of seeing? I don't know. There's lots to unpack here.
Absolutely, yeah. And what I was thinking, what is very interesting about this relationship that you're establishing between these things is that at the end of the day, this like the virtual encounter is sort of like a crossed gaze in a way,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
right, because you were looking at like you're looking, but you're not being looked back.
Well, that's it. And I
Right.
tell you something, Anna, this is really interesting. This is really, really interesting, because I remember when we did our first, when I first met both of you from the rehearsal, which was like two or 3 weeks ago. And you remember that I think the whole performance, I had my back to the audience. And I like it when I face the audience, but I actually really love it when I've got my back turned to the audience, and it's the back, which is, there's something, there's something quite disruptive about turning your back to the audience. There's something that I don't want to engage with you. But I don't, it's not because I don't do it like that. I do it because literally the back becomes the canvas. But I'm really interested in how, the kind of, when I've got my back turned to the audience, I don't know. I sometimes I want to sort of do like this every so often to make sure, are you still watching? Are you still looking at me? Are you still engaging? Have you turned off? Have you are you sleeping? Have you gone out for a quick cigarette? Are you still there? Is the audience still there? So it's really funny, because I'm one of these people, when I'm doing it, I don't look at the audience. I can't see you anyway. I've got the script of the words up over the top, so I don't actually see you. But there are times when I want to actually sort of imagine I'm seeing you. And I think that the moments when I do turn around in the performance, they're actually quite particularly when it looks like I'm on fire, it's quite aggressive. The act of looking then becomes really confrontational. And
there's even, if you think about it, there's another level to that, because and now I'm going to draw a little bit from like my own experience of being in this virtual space and getting to know people without ever getting to know them in person. Recently, when I relocated back to London, I finally met my boss. Like, we've been working for like a year and a half together, but we've never seen each other live. It was only this kind of situation. And then we finally met in person. We went to a cafe and it was really nice. And the first thing we did when we were together was actually like circle each other and have a look at our backs, because that's all we have now, right? Like, we only have like upfront face, shoulders, and chest, and that's it. And what I was thinking now is that when you turn your back to the camera and you show us a back, you're actually, it's almost erotic if you think about it, because you're giving us access to something that the camera does not usually see, and that it's something that it's not really part of this exchange in a way. So it's like a different level of vulnerability, and it's very particular to the moment where we are now, I think. Right. Well, I don't know. I was just, that thought popped in my mind about with your back to the camera.
I've been working with this guy. Who I've only ever known online, and I'm so looking forward to meeting him, because apparently he's meant to be very tall. But of course, I don't imagine that. So like, I'm sitting here thinking, I wonder how tall these people are. Maybe Anna's really short, or maybe she's really, really tall. You don't know how tall I am. I might be very short. This space, everything gets conflated. Everything gets.
Yeah, exactly. We're kind of hostages. Well, and at the same time, it's like a hostage situation, but it's also very liberating, because you have all this freedom to actually imagine and go with vibes out of people, like, and this is actually something that I thought when I was meeting my boss, because she has such a presence. I imagined her being like this 3-meter tall woman, and then like when you go and meet her, like, oh, that's how tall you actually are. You're not this person in my head. You're actually like a human being in flesh and blood, and you have your own height that it's independent of how I perceive you in my mind's eye or whatever.
But there's also, it's also for me, whenever I think about, having an experience, I don't just think about what I'm seeing. I think about the, the kind of the way the body is provoked through its senses. So how smell, touch, sight. I mean, sometimes when I think of a person, I think of a certain smell. I might think of their perfume or their aftershave, or, you know, I might associate certain, you know, maybe ways that we hold hands, or when we shake hands or something. We don't have any of that kind of, hang on, I'm just going to plonk it into chat. This is what I think is so interesting at the moment in terms of technology. We don't have any of this affect, which basically means sensation or feeling. We're kind of online. We don't get any of that. But actually, I think the kind of the upside or the compromise is actually how, for me, how can you create an immersive experience, a viscerality, a visceral embodied experience using very deadening corporate technologies, or just using the flat screen. And that's what I'm trying to, I think when I did the those bits that you see at the first part of the film, I know we're going a bit off course now, but when I first was doing those rippy bits, and you see the images coming through, again, that was another accident that I discovered on iMovie. I don't use any kind of sophisticated technology at all, and actually I really enjoy that I can create these kind of layers. How do you create this kind of peeling away? And so when you have those, particularly that section of the performance, when you see it on my back, it literally looks like you're peeling my skin. So all of these layers look like my skin. So I quite like that kind of bleed, or that kind of yeah, that kind of awkwardness, really.
Oh, well done. I was gonna ask if anyone else had another question, but in the light of that, yeah, I mean, it's almost 11:30 here, so
Yeah.
let's give Lee his time to rest.
Yeah, I want to thank Lee and Anna for the talk, and everybody that are here and that arrived in the middle of the thing. Right in the beginning, we have so much other people arriving, so I was very relieved and very happy that we have the audience. And Lee, thank you for your night, for your time. I tried to ask everybody to mute the phone, the sound. Let's to hear a little.
Wow.
I understand the emoji applauses, but at least some strange and cutted applause for me is good. So thank you, Lee. Have a good night. If you have any last words for now. Thank you. Yeah.
No, I just want to say thank you for the conversation. Thank you for everybody watching, and yeah, please get in touch with me if you'd like to see any more of my performances. There's loads on my website, and it's not the Zoom performances aren't just about my identity or sexuality. I've got quite a lot of other ones which which have different kind of subject matters, but they all use this Zoom effect to different degrees. But I think what we spoke tonight about, I think was really fascinating, and I could probably carry on for another 2 hours. But, it's late. Anyway, thank you so much, and good luck with the rest of the festival. And I hope I'll get another chance to contribute. Let's keep in touch.
Yes,
Perfect.
absolutely. Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and we'll see each other tomorrow. Oh, soon. No.
Good night, guys. Bye bye.
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 Thank you.